Hey there guys, Aldershot here, and today we're going to do an early impression video on The Forest, developed by Night Games, and currently on sale on Steam for the regular price of $12. Now, The Forest is currently in the early access program of Steam, and it's not even a week old, but it's doing very well in sales. It's in the top seller list for the last week or so. It's been covered by pretty big YouTubers such as PewDiePie and the such, so it's gained some pretty quick notoriety, and it's been selling quite well, I must say, for the time being. Now, do keep in mind that The Forest currently is in a very early stage of its development cycle, so there's going to be a few bugs, a few rough edges, and a few incomplete features as well. Alright, now, something interesting about the development team in Night Games is that it's only a 4-man studio, and they're stationed here in my residing province of British Columbia, Canada, so rooting for the home team and all that. Alright, and it is a survival open world semi-horror game. Anyways, let's get into the game and kind of check out what's it all about. Now, as you can see, right in the beginning, it's going to quickly remind you that this is still very much an alpha build and still very much in development. Now, when the game does start, when it does load, it will feature a pretty thematic opening scene. We'll explore that a little bit once it loads up and all that stuff. Now, I believe these 4 people in the team of Night Games, they have a VFX background, which will have a lot to do with why this opening cinematic is going to be pretty cool, I must say. So we'll take a look at this now. There's our child on the side there. Oh, hit a bit of turbulence. So there you go, guys. That's the opening sequence. Pretty traumatic, if you ask me, especially after you actually live through something like that. Alright there. So, soon as the game opens up, one of the mutant cannibals of the island that you crash onto pretty much kidnaps your child, which is never a good sign. That's going to be really your motivating factor of this game, is to figure out what happened to your kid, where is he, and how the hell are you going to get him back. So when you load up into the game, you are in the cabin of the crashed airplane, and I do recommend grabbing as much of the useful items as laying about. You know, for the sake of surviving and all that, being a survival game. Definitely grab some food, as you're probably pretty hungry after such a traumatic event. Now, that opening cinematic was pretty damn cool, I must say. These guys have a VFX background, and I'm pretty sure that helped them in developing such a traumatic opening sequence. It's not perfect, of course, now this being an early access game, still very much in its early development cycles. These things are kind of expected. A few things I would definitely critique it on is the kid, although, you know, it definitely adds that emotional attachment to your character. Does look kind of dullish. It has that uncanny valley feel to him. Not too much in the way of facial animation or acting currently, but hopefully the developers will be able to smooth that out and add a little bit more life to what probably should be a very frantic and a very scared child. He actually looked kind of calm considering the situation. But again, this is early access, so these things still needs to be smoothed out. Just like most early access games, is really about kind of demonstrating what the potential of this game might currently be in the future. Alright, so this is an open world, and there are going to be some wildlife around. I do recommend slaughtering to grab their skin and their meat for the sake of survivability. And as you can see, I am hunting down the wrecked luggage that came off the plane. They will definitely have a lot of supplies that will be very, very useful to your survival needs. Alright, so you're going to be able to pick up rocks and sticks and such as well, and that kind of stuff will be used for crafting, again, to further your survivability and all that sort of stuff. And you can only really hold so many sticks and rocks and all that sort of stuff at a time, so do keep that in mind. And now this is an open world game, and it is mainly featuring the survival aspect of it. And with the newfound axe that you found earlier, you can chop down bushes and shrubbery, and they will offer up sticks and stones and leaves for you to kind of gather for, of course, your crafting needs. And obviously this game has a crafting system, which we'll explore down the road. Alright, so another really cool thing about this game is that you can actually chop down big trees, and you can chop down pretty much all the trees in this game. And I must say, okay, this tree might be a bad example. I must say, the chopping animation, the particle effects, and the way the wood chips pretty much in the position of where your axe is hitting it is quite satisfying and very, very realistic. This is probably going to be one of the best aspects of the game. Chopping down trees is extremely gratifying, and they've done a pretty good job on kind of expressing that visually. Now, unfortunately, there we go. When the tree falls, instead of, you know, hearing a big thud, as you would expect from a giant tree like that, you get this weird, almost casino chime. And I'm not really a big fan of that. It's something else too. The logs don't seem to have much weight to it either. They seem fairly light for giant tree logs. Now that's a little bit unfortunate because, as I mentioned, chopping down trees is definitely one of the coolest features of this game, especially considering how interactive the overall environment is. Again, you can chop down pretty much all the shrubbery, all the sticks, and all the trees to your heart's content, clearing away large portions of the forest if you choose so. You know, the whole chopping down aspect is really neat, but the tree falling itself is pretty lackluster, and that's a bit unfortunate. The chiming sound that you hear when it actually falls is pretty fourth wall breaking. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, so I'm not a big fan of that. I do hope they work on it. It's definitely going to be one of my biggest gripes of the game. But besides that, the game looks pretty good, I must say, especially considering that this is from just a 4-man indie team. And the fact that this is still extremely early in its development cycle, so the visual aspects of the game, the visual aesthetics, is done very, very well. The foliage is very well rendered, it looks realistic, and the fact that you can interact with it to such a degree is actually quite impressive already. And I do hope they further this with future developments. Alright, so the visuals looks good, the draw distance is nice, great lighting effects and all that stuff. The team having a VFX background certainly helps with their ability to communicate visual aesthetics and all that sort of stuff. So let's explore some of the mechanics of the game. So as I mentioned, you can kill creatures and they will drop meat and skin for you to create and collect. You can actually use the lizard skin as armor. All you simply have to do is go into your inventory screen and left click them, and it'll fill up the yellow bar right here, and that represents your armor. The red bar next to it is your health. And this stomach portion pretty much represents your hunger level as your stomach. Now this blue bar is essentially your energy, which is kind of like your stamina, what you would expect from most games, how much you can do, how much you can chop, etc, etc. So in order to fill that up, you have to either drink soda, or you have to build a shelter to sleep in. So let's do that. Let's explore some of the crafting mechanics that's available in this game. So it's not all crafting things that you can create is actually in this book that I'm about to show you, but we'll explore this anyways. Alright, so when we first open it, it will suggest that you go through the basics of survival, going through the basic steps of what to expect from the game and how to survive from it. But I already went through all that stuff, so let's just explore it on our own. So first thing we're going to want to create is a shelter. Alright, I recommend the hunting shelter first. It's very simple. You just open up your book like I just did. You select it and you get this ghostly image of the structure you're trying to create. And you simply can place it down with E. Of course you can hold R to rotate it to your pleasing. And when it's in a position that you like, just hit E and it's down. Now you can't really use it yet. This is just a ghostly representation of the positioning that you're going to actually build a structure in. So what you're going to want to do is just keep mashing that E button. And through the crafting materials that you have collected so far in your inventory, that will automatically be added to the structure. Now logs you can only carry 2 at a time. You can't actually put in your backpack. That makes sense to me, alright? So you're gonna have to kind of just remember where all the logs are when you chop down a tree. Now they do shine, alright, on the ground, which does help you find them a little bit easier, though sometimes when they fall in taller foliage it can be a little bit difficult to locate where all the logs are, but that's fine, that's okay, because there's lots of trees for you to cut down. Now it does take up energy and we are kind of low on it right now. We don't have a shelter to sleep in, so what we're going to do is drink some soda. Soda will also help with the energy situation as well. So there we go. So 1 more log should probably do it. What else do we need? We need, alright, 2 more logs and 2 more sticks. Alright, so these little trees, they should give us some sticks. So we're going to chop this little tree down. Or this thinner tree, I guess you can say. So again, the chopping mechanic is very, very satisfying. I love chopping down trees. The way it looks, the particle effects that come off your axe is all beautifully rendered. Very, very realistic. But again, that damn chiming sound. It really breaks you from the experience. It doesn't suit the game. I really, really hope they do change it. I find it a little bit subpar in quality compared to the rest of the game, which is featuring some pretty gorgeous visuals, and you can tell the developers have a fairly high standard as far as quality is concerned, which makes me wonder why the chiming sound for when the logs fall is a bit unfortunate, especially considering that this is one of the aspects that have attracted so many people to this game. Oh my, looks like we've attracted some cannibals, some mutant cannibals. Alright, now the mutant cannibals are actually pretty creepy and pretty aggressive. I must say the design of the cannibals is actually pretty well done. I like the fact that they're kept somewhat realistic in that they're very, very humanoid, but they're just extremely aggressive and extremely violent. Alright. I like that they're not monsters, though I do believe there are going to be more monstrous creatures further down the road as well. I just haven't really found any of them. The AI for them is actually pretty well done. As you can see, they saw me looking at them and they ran off in the distance. Now they're not gone, they're tracking me, they're observing me, and they won't attack right away. The best way to defend against them is through fire. Alright, going against them with your axe is not a great idea. It takes a lot of chops in order to kill them, and it only takes a few swings from them to kill you. So what we're going to do is make some Molotov cocktails. This is an example of something that's not listed in the crafting book that you can actually create. You can create a variety of different things that's actually not listed in the book. The Molotov cocktail is one, and you can also create a sort of hammer axe, I guess you can say, a crude hammer axe through stick and stone, and amongst other items as well. Alright, so we're just concerned with making some Molotov cocktails right now to fend ourselves from the invading cannibals. throw it at them. Now, just like the tanks in Left 4 Dead, once you hit them, they're going to burn to death. And yeah, fire is very, very effective against them. Going up against them with an axe is generally not a good idea. Alright. Now, the pitter-patter that you hear when they're stalking you is actually quite unnerving. So, generally speaking, the sound design is pretty good. Between the birds chirping, the way your axe sounds while chopping wood, the way that the Molotovs sound when they break, it all sounds very, very realistic and very appropriate. So again, that's why I don't understand why the chiming sound when you chop down a big tree. So hopefully they will fix that. Now, this game is early access, so it's a little buggy. There's a couple of rough edges. I'll show you one bug now. When I'm holding a Molotov and I'm switched to another item, I automatically drop it, and there's no way to avoid that. I always will end up wasting a Molotov when I switch weapons, so that's a little bit unfortunate. Hopefully they will work that out. I want to show off a little bit more of the crafting. Once you get your shelter created, it's generally a good idea to start setting up some fire. Now, as I mentioned before about the AI being pretty decent for the cannibals, they react to fire. They're a lot more hesitant on their attacks. If looks like we got some more friends here. If they do see fire, so as you can see, they're a little bit more standoffish and all that sort of stuff. And it looks like they're mourning their dead. I've never seen that before. Wow, they put a lot of attention to detail in their AI. I must say, I'm pretty impressed. Although, you know, the AI is pretty well done for the most part. They're not perfect. They will run to fire from time to time, which doesn't really make a lot of sense since that pretty much burns them to death. We are going to take care of them. Otherwise, they will take care of us, and we don't want that to happen. And we're going to try and get them to run into the fire as well. And which she did. Wonderful. Oh my. We seem to be out of Molotovs. Let's see if we can quickly mix some before they attack us again. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. There we go. But as I was saying, some other impressive aspects of the AI is that if you do light a fire, although it is good defense in keeping them at bay for the most part, they will get brave at some points. It will actually draw their attention to you as well, especially during nighttime. So you do have to be careful about that. And if they do notice you, they will call on other members of their tribe to attack you. So you do have to be very, very careful. Now here's another aspect of the game that's a little bit glitchy right now. Sometimes when they die in a T-pose. But again, this is early access, so some of these rough edges are kind of expected. But again, hopefully the developers know about this. I'm sure they do. And that they will, you know, work on it and smooth it out and all that stuff. Now, in the bottom left-hand corner, it'll say that I'm covered in blood, wash it off to avoid infection. So that's actually a really cool attention to detail as far as survival is concerned, that the developers have put a somewhat emphasis on not just eating and sleeping and shelter and all that stuff, but also in sanitation as well. So if you do end up getting into combat where you get blood splattered on you, that can start getting infectious. And you're going to have to find some water, such as this here, to kind of wash it off. So that's really cool, I must say. The developers have put in quite a bit of attention to detail, which is very much appreciated, of course. So we find a dead cannibal there. Alright. So we're going to try and complete our current project, which is, let's see, I think we were building something, I believe. We were mostly defending against other tribesmen. That was the main thing right now. Okay, so yes, I think we're trying to create a fire so I can show you how to cook things. Alright, so we will go into the fire portion of our manual. Just like our shelter, we just select it, hit E to place it, and then build it with the material that we have in our backpack. There we go. Now we can cook some food on that fire. So let's take our rabbit and then hit C over the fire and just give it some time, and that'll cook, and it'll be a delicious little rabbit steak to keep us alive for a little bit longer. Alright. Now, as I mentioned, the game does look quite gorgeous. And there is actually a pretty big island to explore. So I don't actually recommend setting up a permanent... Oh my, we got some friends. Alright, let's bring out the Molotovs again. Now, I don't really recommend staying in one spot early on. It's definitely, I think, is a good idea to build some temporary shelters and kind of explore the island as you go. I think that's a good way to kind of go about it. Also, when you build a shelter, the shelter icon will show up wherever you go, which is a great way to kind of mark where you've been on the map. So as you build more shelters, more of these shelter icons will come up, and you'll know where you have been, where you haven't been, and all that sort of stuff. Alright. So let's check on our meat. Oh my, I think we overcooked it. So that's another thing, another little bit of attention to detail that these guys have put into the game. Let's get rid of this Molotov. It's going to explode in our hand, of course. Is that if you don't pay attention to your food, they can actually get overcooked. So you're going to have to watch that. Just like in real life, alright, which is nice to see. And just like in real life, you can throw leaves in it to kind of burst the fire up a little bit, which will help, you know, will help keep the tribe's people away from trying to attack you and eat you alive and all that sort of stuff. Alright, so let's explore a little bit. We kind of already been through that area. Actually, you know what? Our energy is a little bit low, so let's take a little nap. Which brings me to my next point, actually. Now, this game doesn't actually have a save function, at least not a fully featured save function. You can't, like, hit escape and then save your game. You can't hit F5 to quick save or anything like that. Only recently they put in a function where you can sleep in your shelter, and that will save your game automatically. Now, I say it's not a fully featured save function because you're not going to always want to sleep. When you sleep, you pass time, and when you pass time, your hunger level goes up. So it's not like you can save whenever you want. You can only save at appropriate points of your survival. So do keep that in mind. Now, I do believe that they will put in a fully featured save function eventually. Something else about the game that you need to keep in mind, although the world is large and there is a fair amount of things to craft, there is still a lot of crafting items that's not implemented in the game. I'll show you some of that now. These orange bits here, they are uncraftable right now. They are just basically preview tabs, so not everything is quite there yet. So do keep that in mind, and also there's not much of a narrative to the game at the moment either. It's really just about surviving day to day, not dying, and trying to build some structures and all that stuff. Now I'm getting a little bit of frost developing around the screen. That represents me getting cold. So getting cold is bad. I can catch hypothermia, which is obviously very, very bad for surviving. So we're going to go back to our temporary shelter because we have a fire going there. And we are going to try and warm ourselves up and maybe pass some time through sleeping, because exploring during the nighttime can be quite dangerous, as you can freeze to death, which is never good. So we're going to spend some time sleeping, and hopefully we can hit morning. There we go. That's a little bit better. So as I was saying, there's really not that much of a narrative drive for this game currently. The most you can really do is explore the lands, which there is quite a bit to explore, fortunately, and also to kind of just try to survive as long as possible. That is easier said than done. The longest I've survived was 4 days, because, well, the cannibals are very, very dangerous, and they swarm at you very, very quickly. Alright, now your first death won't actually cause a game over. You'll get pretty much teleported into their cave, I guess. You wake up in their cave, and you'll get some useful items in there, and you'll be able to find your way out of the cave and go on surviving. But on your second death, you will die permanently. So next time we see a cannibal, we'll kind of suicide ourselves just to explore that a little bit. But for the time being, we are getting hungry, so we're going to eat some of the snack bars that we found while we were looting the luggage. Definitely loot the luggages if you see it. I definitely recommend that. For the time being, until we find more cannibals, we're going to explore the land a little bit. Maybe build some temporary shelters. We're not too far from that one, so we'll go over to this coast before we build our next shelter. By the anchor, perhaps, or close to the anchor. Oh, you do have to be careful what you eat as well. Luckily, we accidentally ate blueberries. Blackberries are poison. I believe right now that's the only sort of fauna that you can kind of gather to eat. You can grow your own crops and find seeds as well. I haven't found any yet, but apparently it's in the game. Alright, so, oh look, a fishing spear. Let's grab that, and we can go fishing as well. Ooh, fish, not bad. Alright, so let's keep exploring. Grab this booze and see if we can find any friends, so I can show you off the cave aspect a little bit. So that's really the game right now. It's exploring and surviving. And for your $15, that's what you're going to be getting. If you're expecting a fully functional game that's been polished to a T, then you might want to wait a little bit longer, a little bit further into the development cycle of the game. As I mentioned and as I've shown in a few aspects, that the game is still a little bit rough around the edges. But besides that, it is pretty impressive considering everything. Considering that it's an indie game, considering that it is developed by a 4-man group, and considering how early that this game currently is in its stage of development. So I must say, for $15, what you're buying into, you're not really buying into a full game, you're buying into a promise. You're buying into a game that's showing a lot of potential. Alright, now it is fair to say that you do have to be careful when investing into early access games, as we do have circumstances like Towns. I'm not going to go fully into it, but just Google Towns controversy. You'll find lots of information on it. Essentially, the developers said it was finished when it wasn't really finished. Alright, so that's always a danger when it comes to early development games. And this game having only a 4-man team, that can very much be the case, perhaps. Hopefully that won't be the case, of course. And with the amounts of attention and with the amounts of money that this game has been generating, it probably won't be the case, to be completely honest. The developers on the forum seem to be very, very active. They seem to be very motivated people who is definitely seem like genuine developers. So I must say the game does look like it has a lot of promise. It has a pretty bright future. It keeps going the route that it does. Alright. So there you go. We're going to chop down this tree just because it's so cool. Just because I love chopping down trees in this game so much. I'm not really sure if they regrow or not. I've never really attempted to chop down all the trees in the game yet or anything like that. Alright, we are going to try and kill ourselves, so I can show you the cave real quick before we end this video. Alright, we're just going to kind of take in the beautiful scenery that this game has to offer. The draw distance is pretty good, I must say. Some of the pop-ins a little bit odd, as you can see, but that's kind of expected considering the amount of foliage that populates this game. You know, but you know, a little bit of improvements is definitely going. We definitely go far for this game, I believe. Now, speaking of rough edges, some of the water does look a little bit funky from a distance, so hopefully they'll smooth that out as well. So we haven't found any friends yet. We found a luggage all the way over here, which is a little bit odd. Oh, it looks like there's a village there, so there's definitely cannibals in that area. We'll give them a big old hug and see what they have to say. I've been having a lot of fun with this game, to be completely honest. Even just trying to survive as long as possible. Hello there. So not all the AI is perfect. These guys actually seem kind of friendly, but this person does not. But as I was saying, I'm having a pretty good time playing this game, and I'm really excited to see what further updates have to show as well. Now, if you noticed in the beginning of the game, not sure if you did or not, there was a countdown of 9 days and so many hours and so many seconds. I believe that's when they're going to launch their next update, which I believe is going to be fairly big. It's probably going to extend the amount of craftable items and all that stuff. So, pretty excited about that. Alright, so when you're in the cave, as I mentioned before, you can collect a bunch of useful stuff. A new axe, some food, medication as well. Alright, and there is actually a flare gun in here as well, so let's see if we can find that. We're a little low on lights. You know what? I think we got a flashlight. Let's use that instead. There we go. There it is. There's the old flare gun. Basically works just like a Molotov, except more straight and more accurate, so that's pretty cool. And we're going to just try and make our way out of the cave. But as I was mentioning, the game's been pretty fun. You know, it's been out for less than a week as of this recording, and it has garnered a lot of attention and has been selling very well on Steam. So I believe Night Games is doing quite well for themselves, so kudos to them, and let's hope they can take that potential and run with it. Not run away with it, but further the development of The Forest. Because I think this game definitely does have a lot of potential. You know, there's definitely going to be comparisons to Rust. But to be completely honest, I think this game actually is closer to Day One's Gary whatever, that really bad game that everyone kind of ripped on after it tried to you know, send a strike against Total Biscuit's channel. I hate to compare such a game with such promise to such a terrible game, but at the same time, it really kind of feels like that. It feels like that's what Gary's Day One was trying to do, but wasn't able to accomplish, and this game is accomplishing it quite well. It's definitely garnered a lot of attention since its release, and again, its release was less than a week as of this recording, so it's doing very, very well, I must say. It has my interest peaked, that's why I've purchased the game, and if you're curious about the game, I think the $15 would be a fair investment. Even if the development stops for this game, which I really don't think it will at the moment, it still presents some pretty fun aspects for you to explore for your $15, though, you know, still a little bit rough and still, you know, could use a little bit of work. Like, for example, my axes have somehow combined into 2 axes. That's a little bit glitchy. But again, these things are expected. The chopping down of the trees is really, really cool. That itself have definitely kind of garnered a lot of attention towards the game, so that's pretty cool. And again, I really hope they fix that sound effect for when the woods fall. That's a little bit, you know, fourth wall breaking. I don't really like it. I really hope they do fix that. But overall, for your $15, not a terrible investment. There's definitely worse early access games to put your money into, and I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that they are going to raise the price as future updates are become available. Alright, so another little bug. The mesh of the tree is still intact while the wood fell, so a little bit rough around the edges, but that's okay because it's still very, very early. I think if you put the money into it now, you very well could get a very interesting game in the future. Rust turned out pretty good. It's still in development, but it's been played a lot, and the development has continued and evolved and done quite well, and I think it's getting pretty close to being finalized. DayZ can be said the same for the most part. The development's a little bit slower on DayZ, unfortunately, but it has been making some progress, you know, so there is that. So between Rust and DayZ, I think you can be pretty confident that the guys at Night games will continue progressing through the forest and improving it and all that stuff. The only thing I would have to kind of worry about is that it is only a 4-man team, and as you can see, this game is extremely high fidelity. They've set the standards extremely high for themselves, so I'm hoping that they don't burn themselves out, because with only 4 people, they're going to be pretty stretched thin, pretty limited in the resources. Now in their FAQ, they did mention that they do hire private contractors to help them out in certain aspects of the game development, which is good to hear. But if I hear that they've hired on some more permanent staff members, that might actually kind of fill me with a little bit more confidence. Not that I'm not confident now, but again, having only a 4-man team working on such a high fidelity game with such promise is a little bit unnerving to what the final product might be, or at the very least to how long it'll take for the final product to become what they've imagined it to be. Alright, so that's about it, guys. That's The Forest, a very, very promising early access game. Again, this is extremely early version of it. This is the very first alpha. In about a week's time from now, I believe we will see another version of it. But for the time being, this is what you're going to get. A lot of survival, a lot of exploration, combating some pretty creepy mutant dudes at the same time. So there you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found this informative. If you did, you know, show me some love. Like, share, fave, and comment. But most importantly, please help me grow. Feed me my vegetables. And subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. Aldershot out.